The 28, Annie finally agreed to marry me. I was over the moon, thinking the romance with the significant age gap was finally going to have a happy ending. But on the day we were supposed to get our marriage license, she vanished. It wasn't until later at a private club that I overheard her talking with her friends. Any regrets about not getting hitched to the great Mr. Stone? Annie let out a short laugh, setting down her wine glass and speaking with a shrug. Regrets? I stood Jake up on purpose. I'm only 23. Dating him was fun and all, but when it comes to a husband, I want someone young and hot. I managed a small smile, slipped the ring off my finger, and turned to leave. From that moment on, our paths would never cross again. On the day we were supposed to get our marriage license, my girlfriend, Annie, disappeared. I waited from morning until night fell, finally accepting the humiliating outcome. Hey, old man, want to know why Annie dumped you? Come to this address if you do. I looked at the text, rubbed my throbbing temples, and said softly, let's go. A moment later, a black Maybach sped off into the night. Half an hour later, I was at the most exclusive penthouse club downtown. From a room at the end of the hall, I could hear bursts of laughter. I walked over and immediately saw Annie in profile. Through the half-open door, she was laughing joyfully about something. I'm just saying, Annie, any regrets about not getting hitched to the great Mr. Stone? My hand, which was about to push the door open, froze. I held my breath without thinking. Then I saw Annie's lips curl into a sneer. Regrets? About him? She put down her wine glass and said nonchalantly, I stood Jake Stone up on purpose. He's 5 years older than me. Why would I, Annie, marry some old guy that much older than me? As she spoke, a flicker of contempt crossed her eyes. I'm only 23. I was willing to date him for a while for the Stone family money, but for a husband, I'm going to find someone young and hot. As soon as she finished, another wave of laughter erupted in the private room. That's our Annie. Ballsy enough to play the head of the Stone family. You're a badass. My neatly trimmed fingernails dug deep into my palm, but I couldn't feel a thing. Amid the laughter, someone teased, Annie, you're not afraid of payback from the Stone family for treating Jake like this? Annie acted like she just heard the funniest joke in the world, letting out a few scornful laughs before retorting. You think? Jake is head over heels in love with me. I'll just ghost him for a few days, then tell him I got into a car accident on the day we were supposed to sign the papers. Problem solved. She said it so casually, without a trace of guilt, as if disappearing on our wedding day was the most trivial thing in the world. But for me, Annie, it was a big deal. Maybe I never should have fought with my family over this relationship in the first place. I never should have tried to build a future with her. I raised my hand, looked at the ring on my finger, and gave a faint smile. Then I took it off. Annie was still talking, but I couldn't hear her anymore. Looking at her eyes, still so wild and untamed, I was suddenly reminded of the past. I first met Annie 3 years ago, when I was 25. At the time, I had just taken over a small company from my family and was starting to see some success. She went behind her family's back, gave up a chance to get a fancy degree overseas, and came to intern at my little firm. Back then, I thought she was a little crazy, giving up a cushy life studying abroad to come slave away for me. I figured she wouldn't last long, but she worked diligently every single day, gradually becoming the star of her intern class. When my buddy Mark found out, he teased me. You're paying a lot of attention to this new girl. You falling for her or something? No way, I thought. I was so much older than her. Later, our work brought us together more and more. I watched Annie transform from a naive girl into a mature woman. I thought that meant it was time for her to leave, to take over a small family business just like I had. So I had my assistant throw her a farewell party. That night, she drank a lot. Fueled by alcohol, she blocked my car in the underground garage. When I looked up, her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Whatever. I told Annie to get in the car. She sat with her eyes lowered, biting her red lip, and begged me not to make her go. She told me she'd first seen me at a business gala when she was 18. She said she had never seen a man who could shine so brightly. I brushed a stray hair from her ear, and from that moment on, I let her into my world. But that was only 3 years ago. How had the girl who approached me with such courage and determination become so unrecognizable? While I was waiting for the elevator, I ran into Caleb. He was a guy who had been showing up frequently in Annie's circle for the past few months. Supposedly, he was the boy she grew up with. I glanced at him briefly before looking away. But Caleb turned to me, a slight smirk playing on his lips. Then, in the clear voice of a 20-year-old, he said, "Mr. Stone, how come Annie isn't with you?" I didn't know Caleb well. Before, for Annie's sake, I might have exchanged a few words with him. But now, I acted as if I hadn't heard a thing, not even giving him a flicker of a glance from the corner of my eye. When Caleb saw I was ignoring him, he froze for a second, then scoffed. "Ha, still putting on an act. No wonder Annie didn't want to marry you." With that, he raised his wrist, revealing a familiar Rolex watch. "An old man like you thinks you can compete with me?" The next second, my hand struck Caleb's face. My knuckles left a red mark on his pale cheek. "Jake Stone, you dare hit me?" Caleb clutched his face, his pretty eyes wide with shock. I've never been known for my patience. I'd just grown soft over the years, spoiling Annie. The result was that everyone in our circle thought I was some kind of nice guy. I pulled a cigarette from my pocket and lit it. Then I looked at Caleb, raising an eyebrow. "You're the one who sent the text?" As soon as I finished, Caleb, still touching his watch, suddenly looked like he was about to cry and dropped to his knees in front of me. "Mr. Stone, it's true that Annie and I grew up together. We were childhood sweethearts, and our parents even arranged for us to get married. But Annie standing you up today, it really had nothing to do with me. Please don't take it out on me." After saying all that, he shot me a provocative smile. Then, my head feels so dizzy. Caleb clutched his head and tried to collapse onto me. Suddenly, I was shoved violently from behind. As I fell, my wrist hit the ground, and a sharp pain sent a cold sweat down my back. I looked up. The person holding Caleb up was his childhood friend, my runaway bride, Annie. "Jake, are you stalking me? Why are you always like this? You give me no freedom. I can barely breathe when I'm with you." Annie, still supporting Caleb, turned to me, and a stream of accusations poured out. "What are you so insecure about? I just stood you up today. You don't have to be like this. Do you?" I laughed. But as I laughed, tears started to fall, and I didn't know why. "Annie, I heard everything. I just want to know, did you ever love me?" An unnatural expression flashed across Annie's face before she quickly turned away. "That's enough, Jake. You're almost 30. Why are you asking such a childish question? I already said I'd marry you. Okay? Isn't that enough?" The woman in front of me looked just like the one I had once loved so deeply, but the affection for me was gone from her eyes. Maybe the love was real back then, and maybe the fact that it's gone now is just as real. Just then, Caleb started to sob. "Annie, my head is so dizzy." He bit his lip, his face pale. Tears welled at the corners of his eyes, a sight that would make anyone's heart ache. Annie pulled him into a hug, her red lips pressing against his forehead. A gesture of comfort, of cherish. When she turned back to me, she sneered. "Jake, I never realized you were so vicious." Before she left, she threw one last line at me. "You need to do some serious soul searching. When you figure out what you did wrong, then I'll consider marrying you." My face was pale as I watched Annie walk away with Caleb in her arms. I laughed at my own expense. "Annie, this time I don't want you to marry me anymore." I woke up in the hospital the next day. After dealing with some work matters, I noticed that the number from yesterday had sent more messages. "Old man, I told you not to compete with me. See? You lost, and it was pretty pathetic. Oh, and I bet you didn't know this, but Annie said you were so moved you teared up on the day you proposed. She was actually pretty grossed out by it. It's like an old guy trying to act all innocent and pure. You get it." Maybe because I hadn't replied for a while, Caleb sent another message half an hour later. It was a photo. The background was a hospital bed. He was lying happily in Annie's arms. My head was actually starting to hurt, but I kept holding my phone, reading every single message. "Aren't you jealous of me, sir? Annie didn't want to marry you, but she's willing to marry me. What you tried so hard to get is something I got without even trying. By the end, I couldn't stop myself from hurling my phone against the wall until it shattered. My whole body was shaking uncontrollably. A month ago, Annie and I were out on a boat. On the deck, she arranged roses into a huge heart and proposed to me. I did cry then. I was so moved. To think that at 28, my relationship with Annie could have a happy ending. At that moment, I was drowning in happiness. How did I not notice the distance in her eyes? I didn't even know that she and her so-called childhood sweetheart were already fooling around behind my back. While I was joyfully waiting to marry the love of my life, she was partying with a group of friends at a club. I closed my eyes, letting the tears slowly run their course in the darkness. When I opened them again, I took out another phone and called my father. Dad. My father on the other end of the line was silent. Dad, I agree to the marriage alliance with the Lin family, but I have one condition. I want 5% of the shares in Stone Industries. My father moved quickly. Half an hour later, the heiress of the Lin Corporation I was to marry was stepping into my hospital room. Mr. Stone. A clear, pleasant female voice. I leaned against the headboard and looked toward the source of the sound. I saw a woman with long legs walking toward me. She had a very refined air about her. I had imagined the heir to the Lin Corp would be an old fox seasoned in the business world. I didn't expect someone with such a cool, detached face. She was a completely different type from Annie, but she was exactly the type I was into before I met Annie. Still, I knew perfectly well that this was just a business marriage. I nodded to her. Jake Stone. The woman smiled faintly, the corners of her mouth turning up slightly. Victoria Lin. Then she bent her knees and sat down in the chair by the bed. I pressed my brow, feeling tired. I didn't expect you to come here. The woman raised an eyebrow, her expression serious. Isn't it perfectly normal for me to come pick up my fiancé from the hospital? After that, a group of bodyguards escorted Victoria and me out through a separate exit. Once we were in the car, the partition went up. Victoria handed me a file she had prepared. Mr. Stone, although ours is a business marriage, in addition to the terms my father negotiated, I will transfer 3% of my personal shares in the Lin Corporation to you after we're married. She finished, looking at me with a smile. However, I knew it. Getting a piece of the Lin Corp wasn't going to be that easy. Go on. However, I expect our marriage to be a happy one. We will be faithful to each other. I looked at the beautiful woman in front of me. Barring any surprises, she and I were destined to spend the rest of our lives together. I wanted a happy marriage, too. I can promise that. But if you... The woman smiled and took my hand. I'll transfer another 3% of my shares to you. The day Victoria proposed to me, we lit 1,000 sky lanterns on a small island. The blue fireworks lit up the sky all night long. After we returned, Stone Industries and the Lin Corporation officially announced our engagement. And then, a phone that had been silent for a long time suddenly rang late at night. It was Annie. To be honest, after spending all this time with Victoria, I hadn't thought about her in a long while. My past with her felt like a lifetime ago. I hesitated for a long time before finally answering. Hello. The moment the call connected, Annie's slightly drunken voice came through the receiver. Jake, everyone's saying you're with that heiress from the Lin family. Is it true? I know what I did on our wedding day was wrong. Just then, Victoria, who was beside me, spoke up. Jake, who's calling so late? Annie fell silent, then demanded, You're living with her? Answer me. I stroked Victoria's hair and said with a smile, Yeah, I am. Hearing my answer, Annie froze, her hand gripping the phone. Then she suddenly kicked the coffee table in front of her. Wine bottles shattered on the floor. She just sat there, motionless, her eyes dark and heavy. Jake, how dare you? She spoke with difficulty, as if my being with Victoria was genuinely breaking her heart. Annie, have I spoiled you too much? Who gave you the confidence to think I'd wait for you and love you forever? You didn't forget that you were the one who stood me up, did you? And let me say it again, I heard everything you said that day at the club. Don't call me again. My fiancé wouldn't like it. Annie grit her teeth and sneered. Fiancé. Jake, don't you regret this? I hung up the phone. Regret? What was there to regret? I was done with her a long time ago. After that day, Annie never bothered me again. I quickly put her out of my mind and started preparing for my engagement party with Victoria. So, I was a little surprised when Caleb later asked to see me. As Annie's childhood friend and the guy she cheated on me with, I really didn't want to see him. But my buddy Mark said, Jake, you've been busy lately, right? Go watch the clown show. It'll help you relax. I laughed and punched him lightly on the shoulder. I knew Mark was just looking out for me. In his mind, that trashy couple deserved to go to hell. When I arrived, Caleb was sitting on the sofa, drinking coffee. He was quiet, looking like some innocent kid who knew nothing of the world. Seriously, I almost thought he wasn't the one who'd sent me all those messages. But when he saw me, he gave me a gentle smile, followed by a provocative smirk. I let out a TSK. What a waste of a pretty face. Caleb lifted his chin, his voice arrogant. Mr. Stone, you're here. I put down my briefcase and sat across from him. You wanted to see me about something? Caleb stared at me, a strange light in his eyes. Mr. Stone, Annie and I are getting married. Aren't you jealous? We're going to get our license first, then have the wedding. He finished, then covered his mouth in a fake giggle, looking at me with mock regret. Oh, look at me. Why am I bringing this up? We all know Mr. Stone waited a whole day, and Annie never even showed up to marry you. Ha ha ha. I don't know what kind of joy Caleb got from telling me this, but he actually burst out laughing. I stood up, picked up the coffee in front of me, and threw it in his face. You're pretty proud of yourself, aren't you? What, you get a thrill out of being the other guy? You want to be famous? Fine, I'll make you famous. I walked over to him, grabbed his hand, and squeezed his wrist. This watch is worth over $1 million. Go home and calculate how many years in prison that gets you. Then I bent down and patted his cheek. Caleb, sending yourself to prison for being a homewrecker, that's a new one. Oh, and by the way, congratulations on getting your license. Caleb's pretty face cracked. As I took out a tissue to wipe the coffee off my hand, he angrily wiped the drips from his eyelashes. You're just some pathetic loser Annie played with for 3 years. What do you have to be so smug about? I'm telling you, she gave me this watch. What are you going to do about it? I chuckled and tossed the used tissue at his face. Wow, so impressive. In that case, I'll have to send you a big gift for your wedding. The night before she was to get her marriage license, Annie's circle of friends threw her a bachelorette party. This time, all her friends were genuinely happy. After all, Caleb was the little brother-in-law they all approved of. They were childhood sweethearts, and now they even had a little one on the way. As for Jake Stone, aside from his family background and good looks, what else made him worthy of their dear friend? Annie, congratulations to you and Caleb. I hope the two of you, no, the three of you will be happier and happier. Annie didn't respond. She picked up her glass and downed it in one go. Then she said, Has Jake asked any of you about me lately? Instantly, a silence fell over the group. It was as if the lively atmosphere from moments before had been an illusion. Chloe, Annie's best friend, finally spoke up. What's wrong? You really regret it this time? She and Annie had been friends for over a decade. She had watched Annie go to Jake's side in pursuit of love. Even though Annie always complained about Jake being older, Chloe knew that Annie truly had feelings for him. She knew for a fact that Annie had been so nervous about the proposal that she hadn't slept for 2 nights. But then, Annie, the ship has sailed. Mr. Stone is with Miss Lynn now, and you and Caleb are getting your license tomorrow. Don't do something stupid. Be careful or you'll end up with nothing. Forget it. Let's drink. They partied late into the night. But Annie was silent, drinking alone in a corner. She didn't know why, but even though her head was spinning, her mind was crystal clear. She took out her phone and sent a message to Jake Stone. Jake, I'm getting married tomorrow afternoon. She waited and waited, but her phone remained silent. She didn't understand. She was the one who stood him up on their wedding day. But in that moment, she desperately wanted Jake to stop her. This time, if he just said the word, she wouldn't marry someone else. I was in bed, taking a break, when I got Annie's message. Victoria and I had moved into our marital home right after the proposal. There was no particular reason, except that after a not-so-great first time on the night of the proposal, we found that we were incredibly compatible. I still remember that night after I accepted her proposal. She hugged me excitedly, her fiery kisses landing on my brow. Later, she walked me back to my room. I said to her, "Tori, want to come in for a bit?" Victoria froze for a moment, the tips of her ears turning bright red. "I don't think so." Her darting eyes were adorably alluring. I wrapped an arm around her waist, and without much effort, I pressed my lips to hers. She didn't move at first, but then she wrapped her arms around my neck and deepened the kiss. Her hot hands gripped my waist, as if she wanted to devour me whole. We stumbled onto the bed, and she leaned over me, her lips against my ear. Her low, sexy voice whispered, "Jake, this is my first time." Well, the rumors were wrong. I'd heard the Lynn heiress had a long-time crush on someone and assumed they had dated. Turns out it was just a one-sided thing. I hooked my hand around her neck and nipped the soft skin on her jaw. "It's okay, baby. I'll teach you." But, the first time was over a little too quickly. After we got back from the island, she wanted it every day. Turns out, once a woman gets a taste for it, she can't go back to being a vegetarian. "Victoria Lynn, I want to sleep in a separate room." "Honey, don't you want me anymore?" The woman's low voice had a soft edge to it. I turned and pinched the soft flesh at her waist in protest. A message notification suddenly chimed. Victoria picked up the phone next to her. "Honey, your ex sent you a message. Are you going to reply?" Seeing her passive-aggressive look, I had no doubt that if I answered yes, I wouldn't be getting out of bed for the next few days. Another messy night. As for the message Annie sent, I'd long forgotten about it. At 2 in the afternoon, Annie was standing in front of the city hall where she had arranged to meet Jake. She had dressed up specially for the occasion. She was wearing the same outfit she had on when she stood in front of Jake's car all those years ago. She was already beautiful, and at 23, she could have passed for a famous celebrity. She was confident in herself. Dressed like this, Jake would definitely soften. As for her friends, they all thought Annie had dressed up for Caleb. Annie glanced at her watch. Then she asked nonchalantly, "Chloe, is he here yet? Do you see his car?" The group burst into laughter. "Annie, you're that desperate to get married? Last night we thought." Annie stubbornly retorted, "No, I'm not. My legs just hurt from standing." Despite her words, she kept looking toward the intersection. Cars came and went, but she knew that Jake's car would come. But for some reason, she suddenly wondered if Jake had waited for her just like this on the day they were supposed to meet, anxiously looking out for her. To be honest, back then, she had been happy and excited about getting her license with Jake. But just as she was about to leave, she got a call from Caleb. Hearing his panicked voice saying he wasn't feeling well, she immediately turned her car around. She owed Caleb. After a drunken night, she had made a mistake and slept with him. Her heart softened. That's why, after standing Jake up, she had spoken so harshly, belittling him, calling him an old man, saying she was just playing with him. It seemed like the only way to lessen her guilt. He must have been so hurt then. But later, when Jake left her, Annie was shocked to realize that he was the one she had loved all along. Thinking of this, she shook her head. She knew how much Jake loved her. In a little while, he would surely get out of the car dressed in a suit. And when he did, she would present him with his favorite flowers the moment he stepped out. She might even get down on one knee and propose to him again. Just then, Chloe's hand clapped on Annie's shoulder. "What are you spacing out for? Look, he's here." She looked over joyfully, excitement practically spilling from her eyes. As the car got closer, her heart beat faster. But for some reason, looking at this car, she had a strange feeling. Until the door opened, and a boy in a white shirt stepped out. "Annie, I'm here." The boy's voice was clear, and he was very handsome. Annie was pushed forward, toward the car. Before she could react, Caleb took the flowers from her hands. "Wow, thanks for the flowers, Annie. I love them." Seeing the boy's shy expression, Annie suddenly screamed, "What are you doing here? Where's Jake?" Why are you here? Jake will be angry if he sees you. It was only then that everyone realized the person Annie had been waiting for was the old man she always talked about, Jake Stone. Caleb looked at Annie in disbelief. She was the one who wanted to marry him, who told him to dress up and come here. Why was she acting like this now? He couldn't help but tear up, his watery eyes fixed on her. Annie suppressed her anger and grabbed Caleb's shoulders. Caleb, go home. Don't humiliate yourself like this. I'll make it up to you. Be good, listen to me. Don't make me angry. Caleb finally broke down, crying and screaming. It's always Jake. Always Jake. You called out Jake's name when we slept together, and now you're using our wedding day to get back at him. If that's how you feel, why did you run to me on the day you were supposed to marry him? But even as he cried, he reached out and wrapped his arms around Annie's waist. Annie, Jake is with another woman now. He was only with you because you were young. I'm the only one who truly loves you. If he had any feelings for you, how could he accept another woman? Why hasn't he shown up yet? Enough! Annie shoved Caleb away and snatched the flowers from his hand. I hurt Jake. I'm waiting here for him because I want to. All right, get him out of here. Annie watched the car drive away, and most of her friends left with it. But she kept waiting. She believed that Jake would come. He had to. Victoria and I found out about this after we got back from our trip abroad. At the time, I was trying on a suit. That's when Chloe's call came through. Mr. Stone, it's for you. Okay. Can you answer it for me? Thanks. I stood in front of the full-length mirror, looking at my handsome face, and let out a small laugh. There was a reason men dreamed of wearing custom-made suits, especially when that suit was a work of art, hand-crafted over 3 months by an international master, commissioned by the woman I loved. Hello. Hello, Mr. Stone. This is Chloe. I remembered her. She was Annie's best friend, but I just shook my head, pretending not to know her. I don't recall. The line went awkwardly silent for a moment before Chloe quickly spoke up. Annie. I'm Annie's friend. With that, I gestured for my assistant to hang up. Wait, Mr. Stone. I need to talk to you, it's important, Chloe said, glancing at Annie lying in the hospital bed and sighing. Annie was in a car accident. It's really bad. Could you possibly… Before she could finish, I cut her off. No. Is Annie there with you? Can she hear me? I'm only going to say this once, so please don't contact me again. I have a fiancé. And if I recall correctly, isn't Annie supposed to be getting married to her little boy toy? There's really no good reason for us to be in touch. After hanging up, I blocked all of these irrelevant people. Later, I asked Mark what happened. It turns out that on the day she was supposed to get her license, Annie sent Caleb away on the spot. She waited until dark. But the only news she got was that Victoria and I had gone abroad. Then she went drunk driving late at night and nearly got herself killed. Chloe looked at the pale face of Annie in the hospital bed. There was a time when Annie was such a shining star in her eyes. Growing up, she was always the kid other parents compared theirs to. Excellent grades, impeccable manners. From middle school on, there were always plenty of boys chasing after Annie. As a teenager, Annie was like a heroine straight out of a comic book. Many of them, daughters of wealthy families, had their first loves early on. But not Annie. She was devoted to her studies, with a sacred temple of ambition in her heart. Until she turned 18. Annie found her, blushing, and told her she thought she was in love with the head of the Stone family. It was only later that Chloe realized it was a one-sided crush. Besides, there was a bit of an age gap between them. When she was 20, she went to study abroad in the UK, while Annie went to be by Jake Stone's side. It was supposed to be such a beautiful love story. How did it end up like this? Annie, just let it go. If you really need someone, let Caleb take care of you. You used to like him, didn't you? Sometimes Chloe didn't even want to deal with Annie, but looking at the person in the bed, she couldn't help but remember all the years they had spent growing up together. Whatever, they were best friends. But she had tried to warn Annie at the club. Annie suddenly sat up, ripped the 4 needle from her arm, and blood began to seep out. She ignored it, threw off the covers, and tried to get out of bed. Seeing this, Chloe sneered and threw a punch. Annie, Have you lost your mind? Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you to cherish Jake and to go get married? And what did you do? Not only did you not go, but you sat around gossiping about him with a bunch of so-called friends. Now he won't see you, he doesn't want you, and you deserve it. You get that? You deserve it. Chloe's words silenced Annie for a moment, but then her eyes filled with tears. He really doesn't want me anymore. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have said those things, and I shouldn't have made that mistake with Caleb. Chloe looked at the frantic look on Annie's face, then turned away, tilting her head up and blinking back tears. Annie, how did you become like this? The person before her had become the very thing she used to hate most. It's like they say, you can buy the same sweet wine for the road, but the journey is never the same as when you were young. 3 months later, Victoria and I had our wedding. The union of two of the city's most powerful families was an understated yet lavish affair. After the ceremony, I ran into Annie outside the dressing room. Seeing her again, I no longer felt any of the old emotions. No love, no hate. In the past few months, my father had made his moves. Annie was now just a spoiled brat living off an allowance. She would never be the heir to her family's company. I think, for someone who was so close to taking over a major corporation, that was a lesson she wouldn't soon forget. Jake, you look so handsome today. Annie forced a smile that looked more painful than a grimace. But seeing her like this now, I felt nothing. I treated her like a stranger. Miss, can I help you with something? Annie seemed not to notice my detachment and continued on her own. Jake, I found your ring. And I've broken things off completely with Caleb. There's nothing standing in our way anymore. I'll send him abroad. Okay? Just don't leave me. As she spoke, she knelt trembling at my feet, as if losing me was truly the most painful thing in the world. I love you, Jake. Except for the very beginning of our relationship, Annie rarely acted like this in front of me. She always used her youth as an excuse to squander my affection for her. So even when she stood me up, even when she cheated, she could still pin all the blame on me. But wasn't she the one who begged to be with me in the first place? Honey, she looked so pathetic. Victoria's voice came from behind me, her tone deliberately exaggerated. She might as well have just told me she was jealous. I stepped aside, looking at Annie, who was kneeling with the ring held up, her face a mask of grief. She looked pathetic. But I was pathetic too, waiting for her all day at City Hall. And I was even more pathetic when I heard her at the club, calling me old and saying she was just playing with me. I turned and beckoned to Victoria. The woman's face finally broke into a smile, and she hurried to my side. Then she wrapped her arm in mine. Honey, what are you doing here? I've been looking all over for you. Then she raised an eyebrow at Annie. Miss, kneeling next to my husband like this doesn't look very good. Does it? After all, Jake and I are married now. He's my husband. With that, she put her arm around me and was about to open the door to the dressing room. It was as if Annie couldn't see any of this. She knelt there, blocking our path. She looked at me, her eyes filled with sorrow. She stubbornly held out the ring, as if she wouldn't move until I gave her an answer. I looked at the ring in her hand. This was the ring she gave me when she proposed. It was a rare collector's item she had spent a fortune on at an auction abroad. Maybe there was some sincerity in her proposal back then. But things had changed. It was completely over between us. Annie, I've already returned everything you ever gave me. I'm married now. I hope you won't disturb me. You know what Victoria is like. If this continues, no one will be able to protect you. If she had shown up that day at City Hall before all my patience had run out, I could have still been with her. If she hadn't said those things at the club, I would have been willing to give her one last chance. They say you shouldn't let sunk costs influence major decisions. But how many men can just throw away a 3-year relationship so easily? So after that, there was truly no possibility for us anymore. Jake, our 3 years together, I don't believe you have no feelings left for me. Annie said, then continued as if making a great sacrifice. It doesn't matter that you're married. I'm willing to be with you, besides, plenty of couples in our circle do it anyway. As she finished, she was kicked aside by one of Victoria's bodyguards. Am I invisible? I paid no attention to Annie being beaten down by the bodyguard. Her words didn't move me at all. The kid's dead and now you show up to breastfeed? You wait till the snot's in your mouth to wipe your nose? Too late. After it was over, Victoria pouted and said her foot hurt. I took her hand and brought it to my lips. There. I'll kiss it and make it better. As I spoke, Victoria put her arm around my shoulder and opened the door. Honey, stay away from that psycho from now on. Otherwise, even your wife won't be able to protect you. Okay. Caleb's family later tried to pull a lot of strings to get him off the hook. But they couldn't get a meeting with me. Seeing that begging wouldn't work, they decided to launch a media campaign. The internet was flooded with press releases. Things like wealthy scion bullies and separates childhood sweethearts. And fails to win love, frames innocent youth. Caleb's family PR team painted him and Annie as a pair of star-crossed lovers. And me as a villain who was driven by lust. The netizens didn't know the truth, they just read the posts and believed the two were innocent. What century is this? Still pulling this crap? Mr. Stone, you're going too far. I don't mind, Mr. Stone. I'm beautiful too. Look at me. Here's my name, age, address, and no communicable diseases. Person above, have some shame. Your abacus beads are hitting me in the face. Let me also nominate myself. Unfortunately for them, these posts didn't circulate for long before Annie herself went public and laid out the whole story of our relationship. At the end of her video, she said, Jake, I know I've made many mistakes that I can't atone for. This is the only thing I can do for you now. I'm sorry. Caleb's family, who had hoped to tarnish my reputation and hurt Stone Industries' stock price, had to back down. But just because they wanted to quit didn't mean I was going to let them. I had the Lynn Corporation's PR department write up a long post for me. It detailed my 3 years with Annie, how Caleb knowingly became the other man, how they slept together after Annie proposed to me, how they even fooled around in my villa and stole my $1 million watch. And now they were trying to flip the script and slander me online, accusing me of breaking them up. At the end, I attached screenshots of the text Caleb had sent me, along with audio and video from when he asked to meet. At the same time, I sent a lawyer's letter to Caleb's family for defamation. As for Caleb, the law would deal with him. Of course, he also earned a new nickname from the netizens. Caleb the Copycat. His girlfriend? He was envious of someone else's, though he probably had his own. The watch? He was envious of someone else's, though he couldn't afford it. I had to laugh. Maybe in 20 years, when Caleb gets out, he can cash in on the notoriety and become some kind of influencer. Not long after this, Caleb's father somehow found out my schedule and blocked my car. I thought to myself, it really runs in the family. Do they all have a thing for blocking people's cars? I sat in the car, looking at Caleb's shaken father standing in front of me, and decided to give him a chance. My assistant brought him over, and I slowly lowered the rear window. Mr. Stone, I'm begging you, let Caleb go. What happened online was our fault. I apologize to you, but Caleb is still young, he's just a kid. I know it was wrong of him to steal your watch, but I didn't look at him. I just waved my hand dismissively, my voice flat. If you want me to let Caleb go, fine. But your family has to give me half of their company's shares. Now go. To think he could get me to let him go with a simple he's just a kid. He must be dreaming, especially for a grown man who was a homewrecker. After that, Caleb's family finally gave up. Their company was a small enterprise that depended on Annie's family to survive. Even if Caleb was his father's favorite son, what did it matter? When faced with a choice between business and family, he was ultimately cast aside. I once said I would send him a big wedding gift when he and Annie got married. But now it seemed his wedding would never happen. I had imagined him being put in handcuffs on his wedding day. That scene would have been unforgettable for him. What a shame. Now I just have to watch his downfall happen quietly. Annie saw Jake Stone again at a party. By then, he had been married for over 2 years. He was still as handsome as the day she first saw him when she was 18. It seemed his wife was treating him well. Unlike her, she threw back a glass of wine. Even now, she didn't know how she could have done something so monstrous. They say loving someone is like tending a flower. In the last days Jake was with her, He had looked truly worn out. She stumbled out of the party. Ever since the car accident, she'd had some trouble with her leg. She shook her head, trying not to think about it. What did it matter? Who cared about her now anyway? Her old friends, her sisters, they all deserted her after she lost her status as heir. Even her best friend, Chloe, had gone abroad to expand her business. A few days later, Annie saw on her phone that Jake's wife was pregnant. This time, she smashed her phone. She buried her face in her hands and sobbed on her bed for a long, long time. At 26, she had finally lost the man she loved most. She thought that after so much time, she would have moved on. But in that moment, she understood with painful clarity that she was still holding on to a sliver of hope. Maybe she would never be able to forget Jake Stone, never be able to forget their past. The thought that he would have children with another woman, that he would do all the things they did when they were in love, drove her mad. Annie clutched her head and screamed, smashing everything in her room. When she came to, she took out the box with the ring. She opened it and put it on her finger. The ring was still so brilliant. Its light dazzled her eyes, just like when she first saw Jake at 18. Outside the window, she thought she saw Jake waving at her. "Jake, I'm coming." Epilogue. Victoria and I had 2 children after we got married. For the first few years, we were inseparable. She treated me very well. Much better than I ever imagined a marriage of convenience could be. You could even call it love. For example, in our 10 years of marriage, everyone said she loved me to death, that she was obsessed with spoiling her husband, that her feelings for me ran too deep. They said I was her greatest love, her Achilles heel. But I knew she had another family on the side, a secret she kept from me. In that other home, she kept a young man in his early 20s. She was probably very good at hiding it. She would shower before coming home, using the same brand of toiletries. She never allowed the boy to leave a mark on her body, and she never allowed him to wear any other cologne. The boy and I were like identical copies, except for our faces. The day I brought up divorce, I woke up unusually early and cooked a table full of Victoria's favorite dishes. "Tori, let's get a divorce." As I said it, my eyes began to well up. "Jake, what's wrong? Why are you suddenly saying this?" Victoria said, pulling me into her arms. "You know why?" I pushed her away and wiped the tears from my eyes. She was stunned for a long moment, then suddenly said, "Honey, in all these years, have you ever loved me?" I nodded. "I have." That year, my first startup failed. The stress led to a severe stomach hemorrhage that nearly killed me. After I was safe, she knelt and climbed thousands of stone steps to pray for a protective amulet for me. And while I was unconscious, she confessed her love for me. She told me she had been passionately in love with me for a very long time. She told me not to scare her like that again. I had actually heard her then, but I never brought it up. In the end, Victoria and I didn't get divorced. She gave me the majority of her shares, probably out of guilt. She also sent the boy away, wanting to continue our life together. She even started treating me better than before. "Honey, I'm waiting for you outside." I smiled at the text message on my phone, then looked at Victoria, who was peeling shrimp for me. "I have a business dinner tonight, so I won't be home." Ignoring the slight stiffness in her face, I turned and left. In the black luxury car. "Honey, when are you going to divorce her?" "Hush, don't be difficult. She cheated on you, didn't she? Why won't you leave her? What's the reason?" I sneered and pinched her delicate cheek. "Because in the end, it all turns out the same."